Record on this computer. Hey everyone, this is John Adkisson again doing another interview for the circumcision, and I put circumcision in quotes because that's not my word anymore. Circumcision Harms docu-series. And today I have JP on the call. Hey, JP, thanks for joining, and please tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how you ended up in the movement and whatever else you want to share with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, John. One of my earliest memories regarding circumcision, I think it was when I was 5 years old, and I was standing with my mother in the bathroom, and I asked her, I said, I think, what happened to my penis? Something regarding, did something happen to it? And she says, oh, the doctor fixed that so you wouldn't get a rash. And I think that never quite sat quite right, even with the 5-year-old. But it was always something in the back of my head. And then when I was a little older, I got the book, The Joy of Uncircumcising. I think when I was maybe like 11 or 12 from a Barnes and Nobles. And when I read it, everything in it, everything in it just started clicking. And all these things that, had never made sense before started coming together. How my American friends, would always talk about how women enjoyed sex more, or, how I'd have friends who would lose their virginity and say they didn't orgasm. So lots of things started coming together. And I've always been a curious person. I've lacked a certain, filter in a lot of things, which I think a lot of us have. Otherwise, we wouldn't get into this. We'd be too, shamed into silence. I always say I think you could give a man a rifle and tell him to storm a beach, but you wouldn't find many who'd be willing to put on, red stained pants and stand in the corner of his street and talk about this issue. That's why there's so few of us. I mean, we are the minority of the minority when it comes to activists, and I'm proud to be one. Honestly, it's definitely the most stressful of all, activities that I could think of. But that's how I got involved in it, and I started seeing contradictions everywhere. The book would expose, the different ways that they would try to hide this or keep us silent. And it just became very obvious to me. And that got me researching. And we know once that snowball of researching starts for us, it never ends. And you just keep learning more and more. I'm 41 now. I've been doing this for, 25 years before or more, Before I was doing Facebook, I'd be leaving that book on the windshield of pregnant people, at work, doing, anything I could to kind of, gain attention while trying to keep my own anonymity.
Yeah.
So
do you think that it's getting easier?
Easier with, no, not exactly. I mean, with Facebook and with knowing that every moment, of your day that you're not on Facebook or doing something, you're losing a child, essentially. Yeah. It actually puts more stress on you. So as far as, stress, this is a constant burnout type of work, myself suffered from depression, anxiety, other types of, post-traumatic stress. I've always been involved in EMS, rescue, recovery, that type of work too. But nothing comes close to the stress of intactivism. It really is, I think, the most stressful type of work you'll find.
Yeah,
You know, it's a
I
bold
definitely
statement.
agree. It's very it's hard not to be depressed some days. You know, you see, particularly when you see someone defending these genital cutting rituals, you know, performed on children. I'm not just talking about males. I'm talking about females. You know, I come across stuff sometimes from Africa and Indonesia and stuff like that, where, you know, someone is defending what they do there, and it's it sucks to have to deal with that, that cognitive dissonance or whatever, you know, the willful ignorance, or just the, I don't know how else to put it. You know, people doing this, and you know, I wake up in the mornings thinking, okay, well, here's another 3,000 some boys just in the United States alone getting their genitalia cut, and worldwide, all children, we're dealing with well over 10,000. When you start doing the numbers, you think in your head, okay, we got, you know, this many billions of people in the world, and these are the areas that are doing these kind of things. We've got over 10,000 today getting cut, right? And people say, well, this is a little issue. It's, you know, go attack bigger issues or more important issues or whatever. It's like, this is a big issue. This is an important issue.
Yeah, I can't think of a much bigger issue than this, you know. And I will use Indonesia and, you know, the you know, foreskin cutting of little girls in that area of the world as a debate tactic. I will trap people into ending up defending that type of cutting. So they're defending, you
It's
know, the
crazy that some
cutting
do.
of American boys. I'll say,
Yeah.
so do you defend that parent's right to cut the girl's foreskin then? And I end up getting them defending that type of cutting. And then I'll say, you support female genital mutilation, and I'm now ending our conversation with you, you know? And that's it. And that's the end of the debate, you know,
Yeah.
debate one.
Yeah.
If it clicks in their mind, you know, I don't know. Um, it's pretty much, you know, trying to get documentation for history.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one day hopefully all of these debates will be published somewhere,
Yeah.
and some historian will look and see, you know, maybe some psychologist will get some insight into the human mind by,
Yeah.
you know, looking at cognitive dissonance. And you know,
Yeah,
you can't help but make distinctions between us and a place like Nazi Germany, how other, you know, horrific acts throughout history have been allowed to continue.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Even Clinton, not Hillary, but I'm only going to blank on his name. The original Clinton president even admitted and apologized for some of the things that have been done, for human testing in the United States. So yeah, we're not we're not as innocent as a lot of people think. And you know, I was going to say, I often have these imaginations about having like a museum, for the medical industry, the horrors of, the history of the medical industry or something like that. You know, where you talk about lobotomies and bloodletting, and you know, all these different things that have happened in history where medicine was very clearly wrong. The medicine, you know, science, and you know, people will say, well, you know, they'll appeal to the authority of medical, authorities, right? And it's like, they've been wrong plenty of times in the past. What makes you think that they're not wrong now?
Exactly. And the difference in this, you know, situation is we have an entire body of medical experts who know this
Yeah,
is wrong
yeah,
from 100 different angles, but yet the political pressure is so much that they are terrified to even bring up that this might be wrong in any kind of way. You know, at least back when John Harvey Kellogg was pushing his crap, they had a different, you know, theory of disease.
yeah,
You know, um, we now know that's all horse crap, but we continue to have this obsession with the cutting of
yeah.
the genitals of children of all sexes for all different kinds of reasons.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I think, you
we're
know,
making baby steps out there. Like Lurie's Children's Hospital apologized for what they've done to intersex children, you know, for example. And then I think Boston was another one that kind of followed suit. So, but I couldn't. I recently
it,
tried to get the California Medical Board to approach a urologist in LA. I live in California, and because this urologist posted a TikTok video saying that it doesn't harm sex. I'm like, really? Wow. There's plenty of evidence that it does. So I wrote, after trying to get a hold of him and trying to get him to, take the video down or whatever, and he never responded, I went ahead and filed with the medical board, and they won't take any action.
Yeah, I mean, I will, my technique to educate people is I find, Facebook, you can get to a large number of people often, but if I can get somebody who's willing to sit down one-on-one, then I can get them to understand this in a very short period of time. I mean, trying to say that it doesn't affect sex is one of the simplest things to kind of debunk. They'll say circumcision does not affect the sensitivity of the penis. So I'll say, well, does the foreskin count as the penis, or is that separate? Well, obviously it's part of the penis.
Absolutely.
So obviously, if you're amputating nerve endings, you've lost the sensation from those nerve endings. Thereby, that argument is debunked. And when I'll let people debunk it themselves. I'll ask them, I'll say, in your experience, where is the most sensitive area of the penis?
Yeah.
And, 9 out of 10 times they'll point to, the frenulum, that area. And then you can start showing them different levels of destruction of that area.
Yeah.
And then they have thereby debunked their own argument that it doesn't affect sex. Okay, would this man want to go from this level of destruction to this level?
Yeah.
And there'll be no. Like, well, there you go. So you're now saying that this guy in this picture is screwed. This guy over here is screwed. Everybody from the left over. These are all guys that you admit have been damaged.
Yeah.
And the same thing, men with our age. We were cut before any type of anesthetic was used, except for maybe some sweet ease, and you can find a 3-year-old who can instantly tell that infant is in excruciating pain.
Yeah.
But for some reason, professionals who've gone to college for 10 years, 20 years, they can't figure that out, that the baby is in agony.
Yeah, they'll stick that pacifier or whatever with the sweeties in their mouth. But if you sit there and look at the face of that baby, they might not be screaming anymore because they got that thing stuck in their mouth. I mean, they're basically, gagged because when that thing touches the roof of their mouth, they're forced to clamp down on that with their mouth. So they're not screaming, but you see the facial expressions, and yeah, it's really hard to watch.
And that's why it's a form of brainwashing. I've always said that, we've been a brainwashed society in regards to circumcision. We're a circumcision cult. We indoctrinate our members, from the youngest age. We will teach them this nonsense that, this part of the body is impossible to clean. It's too difficult to clean. The male species, the male sex is too ignorant to want to touch their penis in the shower.
Oh my God.
Debunking the myths is, it's almost enjoyable, catching people and showing them how ignorant their own arguments are. It's just far and few between, what I mean?
It's the fox without a tail, but that fox has actually managed to get people to believe it.
Right. Yes.
Really crazy.
That's why I say we need Joe Rogan to have, a skilled intactivist on his show, and that would save, thousands of babies. I want to save 1 day's worth of babies. 3,000 babies.
Absolutely.
I would call my life a success.
Yeah. Hey, Joe, if you're out there listening, I'd love to join you on your show sometime. That would be so awesome. I want to see his car in person too. I saw the show where they customized this. I can't remember whether I think it was a Ford car, and they customized it so it's like totally unique. And I saw him on the show or getting his car, and he was loving his car and all that. So, anyways.
Yeah, I love that guy. He's got such an open mind about things, and he's already called himself an intactivist.
Oh yeah.
So Joe, we need your audience, and we need your money. We need your help, brother.
Yeah,
help us out. You can make a huge difference.
Absolutely, yeah.
I've texted his manager over and over saying, please have somebody on the show.
Awesome.
Maybe one day.
Is that show down here in LA area, or do you know where it's?
I think they did it, and I think he moved down to Texas.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure when he got his car, it was somewhere here in Southern California. So I was like.
Yeah, he was there, and then I think when he went with Audible, I think it was Audible. He moved with he went down to Texas because California, the taxes, and everything going on there. Stepping over to homeless people.
Yeah, I know all about that right now. So, anyways, all right. So I've got a whole list of items that I normally cover in these interviews, and just the quick highlights is, we start off with the physical attributes of how this physically harms us, and then I get into how it affects sexual relationships with partners, and then psychological effects. And I'm not just talking about the psychological effects that's affected the baby and how it might affect them as they grow up and become adults like you and I, but how it psychologically affects everyone. Then relationships in general, not sexual relationships at this point, but other relationships. And then again, we'll cover a little bit about FGM and intersex stuff and to connect how this is all connected. And then social productivity. And then the very last, but definitely not the least important, forced retraction and what that all means and why we shouldn't be doing that. So, okay, so on the physical attributes of it, so I got my little educational tool here. A lot of people love it because it's knitted and it's not a dildo.
Nice.
Hopefully, won't get kicked off of YouTube for having this sort of thing. There's this thing, I guess, on Amazon. I haven't looked it up, but I've seen it on TikTok videos from Foreskin Revolution. There's this lamp now that works a lot like an intact penis. You pull it down, and the light turns on. You slide back up, and the light turns off.
That's a great idea. I actually made one once with my arm when I was debating one of these pro-circ, hardcore religious trolls, Andrew, who was trying to say that, there's only one, you only count it as one layer of tissue, cubic centimeter wise. And I said, well, here's retraction. So, that was a waste of time. All the time I spent trying to.
Yeah, I've spent plenty of time chatting with him. I keep an open line with him. He checks in with me or asks me about this or that every once in a while. But yeah,
I found they don't have an open. They're con artists. They try to pretend they have an open mind, but they will never admit to having lost any point.
So. I didn't say an open. I don't say that he has an open mind. I keep an open line with him.
Yeah, so you do.
I continue to chat with him, even though he definitely has a strong viewpoint about things. He won't even admit to the idea that this is that the foreskin is sensitive or valuable in any way, shape, or form. So, but as far as those guys are concerned, I don't care. They can go ahead and do their thing, and as far as I'm concerned, they're just continuing to help us raise awareness about this being an issue. So they can kind of spread misinformation or whatever, but I think anyone that is honest about this, they'll go look at both sides of the argument and they'll come out on the right side eventually. So
yeah, I think that's the value of the Facebook arguments, trying to make them as juicy as possible, not trying to convince the person you're arguing with, but the audience gets educated.
Yeah. Yeah, we often do the same thing with Twitter. Sometimes we run into trolls that only have couple dozen followers or whatever, and we might not spend too much time with them. But when there's thousands of followers of someone, and that someone is spouting misinformation, a bunch of us would definitely jump on and not necessarily want to change the mind of the person that said something, but we have an audience. So yeah. All right, so the first word that I cover typically about the physical aspect is it's called acropostion, and I like to start there because supposedly the Old Testament version of this only cut off what hung past the glands, right? The acropostion. And John Geischer did a presentation for me at Baby Expo in Bellevue, Washington, close to Seattle. And he brought up an image of I think it was a Greek statue, and you
Statue of David.
Yeah, I think. Well, anyways, it showed the intact penis, and it had that little bit hanging past, the head or the glands of the penis, and supposedly it was just that used to be cut off, and then in 100 something AD, the Jewish men were playing games, outdoor games in the nude, with Romans or whatever, and the Jewish men would hang weights in order to try to stretch things out so their glands would be covered, so they would look a little more like the Romans. And the rabbis got wind of that, and they decided to change things, so it made it more difficult for men to do what we do now, what we try to do. A lot of us try to do restoration. So yeah, for now, laying it, you can look this up. Lay bare the glands. So everything is uncovered all the time. So much more skin is being removed there. It's probably 3 or 4 square inches versus 15 square inches. A lot more.
Yes,
is missing
and it's a great argument too to show that this was not about a man's choice. Adult men were making the choice to restore, and the religious authorities decided, no, that's not an acceptable choice, so we're going to now make that impossible. If anybody tries to make this about choice, that's a perfect example right there.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's not how some things from thousands of years ago started, and we're still hanging on to those things today.
Yeah, I mentioned that because people will look at the statue of David and say, "Why is he uncircumcised?" And it's like, no, that's how they circumcised back then. Before that happened. Yeah, for the game, wanting to play in the games and take part in society.
And that skin is sensitive skin. We've a study by Maurice Sorrells, the Sorrells study, clearly identified that. I don't know why we needed a study to prove that, but it's like, all you have to do is go talk to intact men and say, hey, does that feel like something there? Is that sensitive? Is that innervated skin? It's like,
right, yeah. I mean, it's supposedly the most sensitive part of the human body, and it's also supposedly responsible for men having the multi-orgasmic ability, removing the very tip, the rigid band or Taylor's ridges, whatever you want to call it, So, I mean, it is. I don't understand why our European brethren aren't more vocal in our defense,
Yeah.
But I guess that's kind of like why American women are. Some are. Yeah. But not enough. It's.
Yeah, I was like.
You think European medicine would be calling out bullshit more often?
Yeah. Well, so 15square.org.uk. For those that are watching, that's an organization in the UK that is supporting men that have been cut and are unhappy about it or hurt by it or whatever out there. And in fact, here's a mission statement. It gives foreskin health information and advice to intact men and provides information for men with circumcision issues. This information is also available to parents and carers. So, that's the thing, though, is in the UK, it's almost unheard of outside of religious groups to be going on. And
I have on my YouTube page doctors who are stating the frenulum has no sensation.
yeah, I saw that video.
And I mean, that's the level of ignorance
Yeah,
that we're dealing with here,
absolutely.
you know, and it's like you can Google, you know, frenulum porn, and that, like, you don't need to go to college for this, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's why there's 18-year-olds who understand more about sex than
Yeah.
a urologist of 20 years.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why you can't appeal to the authority of doctors on this, because they vary widely on the innervation and everything of genitalia, and not just male genitalia, but female genitalia too. There's this person by the name of Jessica Penn. Hopefully she'll appreciate me one of these days for keep calling out her name, but Jessica just chose to get some labiaplasty work done when she was 18 years old, because she wanted to, I don't know, look cuter down there or whatever. Or maybe she felt like she had too much hanging out down there. But she ended up getting botched. The guy cut her a lot more than she should have been, and she ended up having some serious damage. And she later on started looking at medical textbooks and was like, there's nothing in here about the innervation of the clitoris. What the heck? So she's been spending years of her life doing doing research and even cutting open cadavers and stuff like that to get pictures and study the innervation of the vulvar area. And she's got this image ready to go into medical textbooks. She's managed to get at least one medical textbook to include it in there. When you look at it, though, it's really hard to tell that it's any different than the male penis. It's just a matter of size. It's all it's really,
just a matter of size, right?
you look at it like, oh, that looks like the corpus cavernosum and all that, but it's tiny compared to this. But anyways, she's been fighting. She's even done a petition to try to get them to try to include it in curriculum more. But curriculum, the people that deal with curriculum says, I was like, well, we don't have enough time, to include this additional information in the curriculum and all that stuff, to educate people. So, well, then people shouldn't be cutting female genitalia if they don't have the time to study this topic. But there, there you go. I mean,
it's big money.
Yeah, and there's a study.
Shaming women is now big money.
Yeah, and there's a study that was done by a guy here in LA that he looked at all a whole bunch of medical textbooks to try to identify the varying levels of coverage of information on the male penis and how well it covers. And some of these medical textbooks didn't say anything really about how the anatomy and the functions of the male prepuce. They would just say, well, that's the part that's normally cut off during circumcision. That's all. I'm like, what the heck? That's not medical. It's keep me going.
When I was going through school, I was curious to see what the level of education would be, and it was, on anatomy, it was 1 minute, and on then like post-circ, care, then they would give you, maybe 10, 15 minutes on this and that. But essentially it's, I didn't participate, but, I would, you would hear it going on. You would see, parents who were being told your baby didn't feel anything. All the common lies. The circ room is like a conveyor room. We'll have like 4 boards set up in a row. Yeah. And it was truly disgusting. They said, do you want to watch? I said, no, I've seen brises before. No, thanks. And that was my out. But it's a truly like a zero knowledge era as far as modern medicine is concerned. Yeah. They people think a nurse would be educated, but they're not. They have no education. And in fact, if you have a nurse who all of a sudden has, a high percentages of their parents deciding not to circumcise, they're going to look at that nurse and say, what's going on with your patients here? Why are they not circumcising? Costing us a lot of money here, Is
Yeah.
the doctors gets a charge, the hospital charges, then there's the whole question of what do they do with it. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
there's no incentive to try to save babies, only to get them cut.
Yeah. There's even a video of a doctor, supposedly retired doctor, Jewish doctor, but retired doctor that came across the bloodstained men, and I think James Owen captured this all on video. You know, it's him, and the lady was comparing the foreskin to a hangnail. Like, how do you get from this to hangnail? One is very innervated and vascularized. One is waste. It's human body waste, has no sensation.
I've heard such things many times, that it's not living tissue, or it has zero purpose. It had a purpose during in utero to protect the glands from whatever, placental fluid, or I guess from prehistory, when we were running through the bushes away from tigers, so we wouldn't get a thorn in our glands.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, their excuses are
Yeah.
they just lack any common sense.
Yeah. What blows me away is that intact men let these myths go on. It's like, speak up, guys. Tell the world this. That's a bunch of bull. Say, I actually went on a. I've been requesting from intact men lately to just do a picture of themselves holding a piece of paper saying, "Hey, I'm intact and I'm happy, or I'm proud, or anything that you want to say about having having your foreskin or your preputial intact." So I got one.
I added today to my YouTube page, me showing an intact man a video of an infant circ, and I would go over the questions with him. Do you hate your mother for not having you circumcised? And he'd be like, "No, I love my mother."
Yeah.
I'd be like, "How much money would would it take for me to get you to be circumcised? How about $10,000? And he's like, "No way."
Yeah.
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 I mean,
I met a guy by the name of Mondo. I think you can look up #vote Mondo. He's trying to run for governor here in California, and I met with him in person. And he's Hispanic, and he's intact. And we talked a little bit about how he feels about being intact. And I did a little video, and it's like, okay, so do you feel like you're missing out on these purported medical benefits? Like reduced chances of HIV and all this other stuff. It's like, no. So yeah. So
and those arguments are so ridiculous. If I ever hear people making those arguments for why you should circumcise an infant, I'd say, you can wait until he's 18 and then explain the possible benefit, and let the 18-year-old make that decision.
Yeah.
So let's get rid of that excuse for right now, that possible reason for the benefits. And when you get down to it, all you have is this possible slight risk of UTI during the first year of life.
Yeah.
And that's bogus, because they were forcibly retracting these infants, and it was asymptomatic UTIs. So I mean, their entire argument is based on I hate to say it, a few people who are perverts, essentially, who have an unusual interest in this subject, and they have pushed their studies all over the place, and now they cite themselves in their in other studies and in their own study. Yes. We all know who we're talking about here, and it's unfortunate. Yeah. But I mean, try to get a study done showing damage caused by circumcision, and try to get that funded and published, and it just won't happen.
Exactly.
This is a one-way street.
Yeah, we need more millionaires like Dean Pisani to be putting more money into this to help put this to an end. So.
That's we need money people. I'm glad we have one. I didn't even know about that. So yes,
Dean is the main funder behind Intact America.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Oh, I would recommend to him, keep it with one group. Don't start splitting your money around different groups because you know with other arenas, when you start splitting up money, then infighting starts to happen and politicking and all
Yeah,
this kind of stuff.
I
So
definitely get that viewpoint. Is the only problem that I have with Intact America is they just keep doing study after or survey after survey after survey, and I don't see how these surveys are necessarily changing things. So their idea is that we're going to learn something, and then after we learn these things, then we'll know what tactics and strategies to take to change things. So like, okay,
yeah.
it's just that Intact America has been doing this for a long time, or they just keep doing these surveys. And their next survey is to interview or survey nurses. So
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it, I mean, I would think if I'd be, having this amount of money, I would be able to get this ended very quickly, you know. But so I don't, understand the tactics other people are using. There's a person,
roll
Daniel Rold. I have to look up the name of his group, but he is
next level
doing
intactivism.
amazing work. What? Say it again.
Next level intactivism.
Next level into activism.
Yep.
And as far as I'm concerned, he is doing amazing work. I want to give him a shout out. I want to be able to be there to help him. I'm dealing with my own issues right now,
I hear you.
so I haven't been able to. But yeah, I think he's doing amazing work.
Yeah. Yeah,
He'd be my intactivist of the year.
yeah, he's the mainstream media outreach guy. He's put together one heck of a database of news organizations and stuff like that to spread spread the information too. So instead of just spreading information on social media or whatever, getting that information, I've helped him do some of these too. It's like I go to the websites and copy and paste some information and send it to the news organization with the hope that maybe they'll cover the fact that Blessed Men are in town, or that there's a new billboard up, or the what's been
Mhm.
going on with the FGM case that happened in Michigan and stuff like that.
Yes, I talked to him. The first time I talked to him, um, I realized this is a very brilliant guy. He seemed to know as much as I knew about MGM, and I've been researching this a long time, and when you meet somebody, you're like, oh wow, this person seems to be on my level, and then I realized, wow, he knows a lot more than I do, and his concept of how to move the ball forward was just so brilliant.
Yeah.
I said, he's gonna make a big difference. He's hitting an angle that nobody's hit before,
Yeah.
and these big fish are it's gonna make a big difference.
Yeah,
So,
there are
keep going, brother.
so many things that we can be doing, so many ways we can attack this and approach this, and just we could use tens, hundreds of thousands of people, not just out there protesting with signs, but and not just doing their thing on social media, but we have so many other ways we can be contacting hospitals, contacting medical boards, contacting um, lawyers, police. I've even gone to the police department in person one time because I had gotten some training on child abuse, and this was going on in my mind overnight, and I woke up in the morning just shaking and in a fury, and I was like, this is child abuse. What's going on right down the road in the hospital is child abuse. And there's no ifs, ands, buts about it. It's child abuse. So I went down to the precinct and pushed the button. They brought me into a room, and I sat down with the police officer and told him how I felt about it and all that. So didn't do anything about it. Clearly, because it's like, well, it's too highly accepted of a thing. We can't really do anything without if you have specifics about like time and date and who and whatever, then they'll take that and maybe they'll go do something. But yeah, it's like, just telling them that, well, right down the road in the hospital, there's child abuse going on. They're not going to do anything.
You raised awareness though.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And
he might go back in the room with all the other buddies of his, and it's like, this guy was complaining about circumcision, or he thinks that's child abuse or whatever. Great.
That's right.
Let him do that.
Yep. And one of his friends might be like, yeah, I kind of agree with him. And then all of a sudden, the dynamic is changing that office.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it happens.
I mean, will go talk to a doctor or whatever. It's like, if I could arrest you, I would. Or something, it might put a little fear into them, Or
I'm not going to give you a pass, I mean, I tell people, anybody who tries to, show how it's a normalized thing, it's fine. Then you could bring up the Metitza Bepe, and I would bring it up as like, an outrageous example. Be like, well, do you think they would allow something like this to happen? And then they'd be like, well, of course, nobody would allow that to happen. And then you can be like, look, this is how far crazy we are. It actually exists. And this is, what's going on. And, so there, I mean, we've gone down the crazy hole so far. It's, it's a hard way back out.
Yeah.
It's going to take, I'm not sure what the best avenue out is, but we're trying everything we can. I think it's going to take something like a Joe Rogan, or slowly, like we're doing, this generation of cut men has to die out or get educated, or
It's been surprising that it's been taking so long for this to change, though, because you look at Adam Conover, Adam Ruins Everything. He covered it, and Penn and Teller, they covered it. It's even as much as I don't like Jim Jeffries for the way his opinion is, Jim Jeffries covered it. In a way. Yeah. He said that he did it because he loved his son. Like, okay. I guess, but he made fun of homosexual docking. Like, okay, so you're a homophobe, and you wouldn't be okay if your son became a homosexual himself. Got it. You love your son. Okay.
Right. I mean, this has our society, we're so PC right now, except when it comes to this is like the one topic where you're allowed to body shame, and you're allowed to discriminate, and
make jokes about
it. I've used my position before. You talked about forced retraction. I saw a nurse force retract. I said, you can't do that. And it became a little argument. Well, yes, I can. I'm catheterizing. So no. So I took it all the way to the top. And it turns out, I'm right, But then the director of nursing is like, well, yeah, but you still have to do it even after everybody agreed, yes, no, you can't do this. Her position was, well, yeah, but you still have to do it a little bit. It's like, weren't you listening? You didn't hear anything. They just continue with what they've been doing the whole time. If they can't accept that the prepuce has any value, well, what's the big deal about damaging the tip of it a little bit each time? That's the problem. We have to, these people are so vested in circumcision and in destroying the prepuce. Trying to assign it any value is painful for them, to hear, that's where that cognitive dissonance comes in, So,
and so much, they've seen so much. It's been so normalized, but like guys born in the 60s and 70s, it's like 90% of us are cut. So if you've seen nothing but cut, it's like seeing something that's intact. It's like seeing an alien, real life alien for the first time.
But you know what the good thing about this high percentage of us having been cut is we were cut without any anesthetic. So we can bring up the anesthetic argument. They'll say, well, babies are cut now and they use pain control. And you could then go down the avenue, well, why use any pain control? What's going to happen to the baby if you don't? And then they'll say, well, it could be traumatized. And then you can kind of push them down. Well, will this be like, traumatized for years, for life? You know what I mean? What would happen if you would take, a group of 100 baby girls and chop off one finger and then look 20 years down the road? Would you have a certain percentage
Yeah.
the hidden, yep.
Yeah, he covers it really well in there, and it's not his words. It's not all his words, at least in that book. He references lots of other he references studies and plenty of professionals, stuff like that. And it's not these studies and these things weren't all about circumcision, but about adverse childhood events and stuff like that, and how those things affect us throughout life.
Yeah, I went and made an appointment with a local therapist, and I specifically did it, and I brung up the topic. I could see him getting a little bit uncomfortable, and the guy happened to be, an expert in sexual trauma and that type of thing. But he was very open to it, and he accepted education fully, and he had actually circumcised his own sons, and he couldn't believe it. He listened to education, became fully educated on the topic, wanted to put out cards, very,
Nice.
open-minded guy. And that was really nice to see, that there are people out there with, integrity and honor, and they're willing to kind of put, their profession out there, their financial income out there a little bit, even if it costs them a few patients.
Yeah. Good.
And that unfortunately, that seems to be the bottom line.
Yeah.
If you tell a person you're going to lose some money, you're going to be frowned upon by your peers, they might laugh at you, then, you have a very small chance of, changing their minds. And that's where we are in America nowadays.
Yeah. It's true. Okay, so we covered the acroprostion, the sensitive skin. Then there's glands protection, right? So the glands is a lot of people call it the head of the penis. It's really no head of the penis, but anyways, that's what people think of. That's what the layman thinks. But the glands is that part that is right there. It's supposed to be inside there.
Right.
Right. So this double layer of skin is supposed to help protect the glands from abrasion and whatever else, and thorns.
Right. Right.
And
you know what I find? That's a perfect avenue to educate, because you'll say, so you're telling me circumcision does not reduce the sensitivity of the penis, but as soon as a man is circumcised, he can't walk around for the first month because everything's so sensitive. He's got to cover things up until he loses the feeling in the head.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, that doesn't make any sense. You've just destroyed your own argument.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've come across lots of men that got cut as adults. And there's an email I get every day about guys talking from Health Unlocked, I think it's called, about guys talking about their problems after circumcision and stuff like that. And yeah, it's pretty much universal that the glands is, sensitive, because it's been covered up, and then becomes desensitized over time because it's no longer covered up. So yeah. And talking about the sensitivity thing real quick again, some guys say, well, I wouldn't want my penis to be more sensitive. Like, it's not that the penis is more sensitive. I mean, well, maybe the head will be more sensitive if you had something protecting it, but it's not like if this is the part down here that is remaining, right? Because this was all removed, that part doesn't become more sensitive. You just have more sensitive skin. You have more sensitive dick.
I mean, that is, if you look at people who have dysfunction, and I've seen more video of dick than anybody would ever want to see in their entire damn life researching this. But it's become completely clear to me that removal of the inner mucosa and removal of the frenulum is always associated with dysfunction.
Yeah.
If a man is missing the frenulum and he's missing the vast majority or all sometimes of the inner foreskin, that is what causes dysfunction. I think it all comes from the pudendal nerve, and then it will branch down into the frenulum. If you don't have those nerve endings, then it's, that's when guys are not able to orgasm, or it becomes, an hour or 2 hour long thing to be able to finally reach that. And the sad thing is that it seems like that's the new type of circumcision they're pushing with this HIV prevention, trying to remove the as much inner mucosal tissue as possible, because they think it's the harbinger for allowing HIV into the body.
Yeah.
So in the future, we're going to see a generation of men with much more severe disability than we have right now. And that's very sad.
I'm afraid of that too. You you look at enough penises, and you'll notice where the scar line is, and where the inner mucosa is, and how much inner mucosa is left. And one of the things that I had figured out is that if you use a Plastibell or Mogen clamp, you're likely to have very little inner mucosa and very little premolar area here, because you were cut here instead of down here. So and with the Gomco clamp, I'm sorry, not got the Gomco and Mogen clamp backwards. The Gomco clamp and Plastibell are bell methods, so they it sticks a bell down over the glands to protect the glands, but it ends up severing more of the inner mucosa and frenulum area. Whereas the Mogen clamp and the barzel and the ways they do it in like the outback of Africa or whatever, they pull up some skin, right, and then they slice, right. So what ends up missing is a lot more down here, not up here, right. So you end up having a different effect. So yeah, and that inner mucosa area is, that just like the Sorrells study shows, that's the sensitive stuff.
Yep.
So yeah,
and it's funny bringing up the Bush methods, or when they will talk about ancient Jewish circumcisions, they'll say it's done for health reasons. You could bring up, well, it was also done without any kind of anesthetic, and it was not sterile, and they were using dirty tools, and it's essentially what was a Bush method would be today. And there was no antibiotics, and we know what percent, of boys, in the outback and in Africa die today, and there are ancient, the ancient laws. If you have 2 baby boys die from their circumcision, you get to skip the third. It's like, let's not talk about this like it was for health reasons. It was always about, a sacrifice of sensitivity to God in exchange for land and protection,
trying to
and it didn't seem to work out too good. I think the bargain was broken a while ago.
I think that you have the individual has as much chance of getting some sort of infection or having some sort of botch problem or milah stenosis or whatever as you do as a person does if they were just stay intact in the first place their entire life. I mean, as far as I understand, the chance of milah stenosis is more than 10% for the of us that were cut. I got that. That was one of the things I'm going to cover.
I think you could say that 100% of circumcised men have some degree of stenosis.
I think so too.
Yeah, you might say it doesn't reach that threshold where it requires surgical intervention.
Yeah.
But and you tell people, I mean, if you're, it seems so obvious, if you create a raw open wound with the urethra completely exposed, and you make the baby in pain every time it urinates, it's going to start retaining urine. In which method does this seem to prevent infection to you? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And none of that seems to make any sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah.
And it's
and for the viewers, you can go out to circumcisionharm.org, and there's a picture out there that shows an intact penis with next to one that's not, and it's very obvious the urethra size difference, and of course the color and the smoothness or shininess of the glands is different too. So there's a.
I'll tell you a story. An activist and a nurse. You'd think I would know this. When I started working and I started catheterizing men, I would see men and I thought that they had their urethras ripped open, maybe from a catheter having been pulled or ripped. I was seeing normal intact men and what the urethra looks like naturally. And I thought that they had been damaged, but I was actually seeing what the normal penis looks like, and I couldn't recognize it. Even as an intactivist, and a nurse, that's how ignorant I was at that point too. So the difference is dramatic. That's all I could say. The difference in the size of the urethra is dramatic, and the development of the glands also. Okay. It's a dramatic difference.
I didn't know that you dealt with that kind of thing as a nurse. That's great. That's interesting to know.
Yeah.
So are you part of the Nurses for the Rights of the Child group?
Not officially.
Oh yeah.
No. I don't think I'm listed as unless I did it a long time ago and I don't remember. Oh, yeah. But I'm very vocal.
I recently worked with Jonian Longley, the person behind it, to improve the social cards, the social presence of that website. So a pretty thing pops up when someone types in childrightsnurses.org into Twitter or Facebook. Yeah.
I think it's a fantastic, that there needs to be a lot more people involved in it.
I've got this question, since you do catheterizations. Do they put any kind of lubrication or anything on the tube that they stick down?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
It comes in the kit.
Okay.
It comes in the kit. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I haven't had to have that done to me yet that I remember. I mean, unless they did it to me when I was getting an appendectomy, but I don't remember that needing to happen.
I would be, if I ever had an infant and they were taken to the hospital, I would never leave their side for an instant, and if they had to be catheterized, I would look at the whole picture first of all. I mean, is my kid actually sick? But I would typically, if it's something minor, questionable, I would ask for a clean catch, where they just put a bag over the penis and let the baby pee into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or you
maybe
do a midstream clean catch, so the baby pees and then you catch the urine instead of allowing.
That's
because the nurse they're going to try to retract a little bit, even if you tell them not to, or they're going to, they're going to do a blind insertion, which on its own too can cause a UTI. I mean, catheterizations cause, high rates of UTIs. In women, it's, extraordinarily high.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That midstream catch, I think that's very good information for parents. Intact penis care. I'm looking at the Your Whole Baby website at the hospital. Oh, catheters and urine samples. Catheter save. How can the catheter inserting by peel? Okay. Should I ask for a clean catch? So. I don't see anything about midstream, but that's midstream. Oh, okay. Yeah, a clean void of midstream urine sample. It's there. It's on Your Whole Baby. So.
Yeah. And you have to go in there and you have to be determined and you have to understand that they're going to try to bully you. They're going to try to, make you seem like an unfit parent if you don't, go along with exactly what they want to do. But you have to say, no, this is how, you have to stand your ground. I'll offer, if there's like local parents, I'll say, I'll go with you to a doctor's appointment. If you're going to a well baby checkup, I'll always say you hold your baby on your lap. You put your hand over their penis. You repeat, you're not to retract him at all. Not even a little bit. Not even just to take a peek. All these things we've heard over and over again after the promise that they're not going to retract. We know that they do. And we know that after they retract, then they, they'll go back into the office and say, I'm not listening to some, 25-year-old mom telling me how to do my job.
Yeah.
That's their attitude.
Do you think in the nursing profession, when a child or baby comes in with a fever or whatever, is that kind of just like an automatic assumption, like, well, maybe there's something going on since he's not circumcised? That's probably where it is. He's probably got a UTI, and that's why he has a
Oh, if a baby comes in who's not and you have like a very anti-foreskin group. Oh yeah, they're always going to be like, oh yeah, like look at this ignorant person who didn't circumcise their child, and it's yes, you will see that, and then you have to be on your guard to protect that kid, even more, because it's the level of ignorance. I mean, they're so dangerous. That's what I mean. It's like it's gotten to the point where if you're a parent of a very small, like a baby or a 1-year-old, I almost feel he's saying you don't want to go there, or if you do go, you have to be so educated on how to protect your child from the doctors, from the nurses. That's I'm sure it could be a chapter of a book, and probably already is.
Since you work in the field, do you have any ideas about what us in Texas could do to try to get more nurses educated on this topic?
Yeah, I think standing outside of hospitals, maybe ERs, giving out intact care. I mean, you have no idea how ignorant the nurses are, even to basic intact care and to not retract. So many nurses still don't know the basic rule that you do not retract. You will have them thinking, and doctors too. I have a video on my YouTube channel of me interviewing. He was, I forgot if he was a pediatrician or an obstetrician who was in his 70s, been circumcising for like 50 years. And he was diagnosing every baby boy born with congenital phimosis because they were not retractable. And he was saying, teaching parents that you have to try to forcibly retract them. He diagnosed his own son with it and ended up circumcising his own son because after forcibly retracting for a few days, the kid got swollen foreskin, and he diagnosed him with, a foreskin infection. So, I think that right there is where our American myth of, this troublesome foreskin comes from, is every parent is trying to forcibly retract what's not retractable, and then you'll see every single time swelling, inflammation, a baby who starts retaining urine, and then will develop a urinary infection. And it's all because the parents can't keep their hands off of the delicate tissue of the child's prepuce.
Yeah.
If you keep your hands off of your kid's penis and never ever touch it, your kid's going to be fine. Guarantee. You'll go through your entire life and your kid's never going to have any kind of penis problems unless the parents cause it. That's, parents cause 99% of all penis problems in this country.
Because they're not educated, unfortunately.
They're not educated. They think they have to clean the dirt out from,
you gotta see that head.
You gotta see that head, yeah.
Like, do we need to dig into the side of vaginas too to see the?
I always say like a hymen. Yeah, it'd be like teaching a parent. Your baby girl is born with partial vaginal obstruction syndrome because the hymen is still there, and and we're gonna have like a little toilet brush, and every day you got to get up there and clean. And if it starts, you bring your baby in a week later and she's all swollen, you got to say you're not cleaning enough. You got to do it more.
Yeah, exactly. That's.
It's an exact parallel of what we do in this country,
Yeah.
And so I think teaching that, just that basic thing, like we are causing our own, epidemic of it, of foreskin problems with our intact boys. If we could get just that across, we would solve a lot of our problems.
Yeah.
As far as nursing, maybe just get that one point across and teach them, I tell them, why don't you take a look at, if you have an intact friend,
Yeah.
ask a few questions about it,
Yeah. Get
what are
past
the
taboo part
sensitive
there.
parts here?
Yeah. 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 I even have a group called Male Intactivists. I've got 100-some guys on there. If anyone wants me to ask a question, I'll post it on there, and then they can all jump on and answer the question. So far, I think
I'll
I've
show
covered.
Glenn Callender's, what is it? His
up
what's it
in
called?
Canada, CanFap, Canadian Prostate
Yeah.
Awareness Project.
Yes.
Yeah.
His video of multiple orgasms that intact men can have. I mean, when I first saw that, I was like, "This is extraordinary," and how pissed am I that I can't do that?
Yeah.
Or frenulum orgasm. I mean, it's so obvious that what you're amputating, the value of it, that when people see that, they really can't argue it. I'll say, would this man ever agree to have that tissue amputated? And they always say no. Then I'll say, so why are you, agreeing to let somebody do that to your child?
Yeah.
Or if you're gonna, if they're insistent on circumcising, I'll tell them to demand from the doctor that they don't take an extra few seconds and snip off any remnant of frenulum, which is, it's something that can cause so much catastrophic damage from just an extra second.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So you were talking about passing information out to nurses at hospitals. There is a avoiding retraction injuries packet on your whole baby in their shop. That it's a trifold thing that looks like it covers things really well, and it's the letter is signed by 2 MDs, a JD, and a PhD. So 4 people involved.
Yeah, and with Daniel's database of all the hospitals, and if with money to print this stuff out, maybe mailing it out to the facilities, to the ERs, to the different units.
Yeah.
That could be a beneficial thing. I've always wanted to have like a continuing education course for nurses on something as basic as forced retraction, because it's in the AAP literature. It's something that you might be able to get. It's not anti-circumcision.
I'm curious about that because not too long ago I came across a tweet where a daycare worker was forcibly retracting babies, and she basically admitted it, saying, well, every time I change their diaper, and they have to pull back to clean them like that, they scream their fucking heads off. And I'm like, don't do that. So it started making me worry. So I started calling the daycares in my area. Luckily, most of the daycares are operated by Hispanic people who don't do it. They know better. But I came across one and it definitely sounded like a non-Hispanic person. And I asked them, and they gave me the wrong answer. So I told them, hey, go check out your whole baby. Go check out, these sites to learn about, you're not supposed to be forcefully retracting. And hey, I'm a cut dad with intact sons. I've learned this stuff. And I found out who is responsible for training daycare workers in areas for them to become licensed and all that. So I contacted them. And they're like, oh yeah, we use this material at AAP. And they sent me down that line, and I looked. And the information for daycare workers and parents about how to clean your baby's diaper area doesn't go into any kind of detail about the genitalia at all. About which way to wipe for a girl, anything. It had all this other extraneous stuff, right? But not that little detail that's so important.
Yeah, it's just hands off, like some hands, and then a big do not cross, no hands touching this area ever. Yeah, it's like the simplest thing.
Yeah, it should definitely be in there that you don't want to retract the force. So the AP should have at least that in there.
That would be valuable to put it in there.
I've been tempted to see about doing a petition to get the AP to improve that. But I don't know, last time I tried to do a petition about this topic, I only got a couple thousand signatures, and it just wasn't enough.
It'd be valuable. You know, when I see, you know, the immigration happening right now, you know, I'll tell people, you know, I'm so pro wall. I want the wall twice as high. And it's not to keep, you know, it's not because I'm against immigration. It's because this is not a safe country for these people to come to. You know, they're going to come here and be brainwashed and put in danger. And, you know, this is not a safe place. You know, I don't want anybody else coming into this country until we fixed our problems and it's a safe place, because they're going to be raised here and be brainwashed the same way we brainwash all of our other young people. You know, on the other hand, it'll change the demographic. They will, you know, save some, you know, it will help normalize things, but, you know, it's a sad price to pay.
Yeah. And since you bring that up, you know, there's FGM cultures that have been coming into our country. That's why the whole Michigan thing came up with the anti-FGM law and the Dawoodi Bohra tribe. All they do is a ritual neck in the Dawoodi Bohra tribe, but yeah, it brought the whole fact that when we bring people in from other countries, they often bring their culture with them. And that includes female circumcision or FGM or katan or katan or however you want to call it. So
I know Daniel tried recently to you know, to get a small little you know, article printed, I think with the local newspaper, and they said, sorry, we don't want to cover this FGM thing. You know, it's very interesting, but so we've gotten to the point where political correctness is now protecting FGM as well. And, you know, it's, we know that wherever male circumcision is, you know, FGM will, you know, is there also. There's no place where FGM exists and male circumcision doesn't. So.
Exactly. All right, so I think we covered enough about the glands protection. The next thing is about the rolling mechanism. All right. You think this is so simple, right? It's, you know, you're just cutting a flap of skin, right? But it's so complex. It's so interesting what it does. You know, you have the rolling mechanism, right? So as you can see, my fingers are rolling down onto the shaft without sliding, without any friction at all. It's just because of the rolling mechanism.
I was listening actually this morning and yesterday. It's a Stanford on YouTube, Stanford professor, and he was talking about you know, the evolution of, you know, how our genitals came to be the way they are. Like, why do women have orgasms? You know, what primate do primate females have orgasms? And he didn't even, you know, contemplate the fact that there's a seal. You know, when an intact man penetrates, they've essentially sealed the woman's vagina.
Yeah.
My, you know, thought, it's not my theory, my hypothesis might be the difference in suction pressure, you know, might be a way of sucking semen, you know, past the woman's my anatomy has failed me.
I think I know what you're talking about. That's an interesting perspective too.
Yeah, I think it's a very, you know.
So you got that seal right there, right? And it's, you know, you're sliding in and out, and it's, you know, everything is staying inside the vagina.
Exactly.
Right?
And then the woman contracts, you know, and it causes a difference in pressure.
Yeah.
So, you know, pisses me off that I can't think of the the anatomy. I have to look it up.
The female anatomy part.
The female anatomy part. But no, I mean, the rolling action, I mean, it's, you know, that's a double-sided sword, because so many American women now are, you know, they want a partner who, you know, is, you know, like some thrusting machine, and, you know, they've gotten kind of like used to that. And it's like, no, that's, you know, you might have, you know, found that, you know, that's what you become used to, but no, you've never tried it the other way. Normal sex is supposed to be a different, slower, intimate thing for both partners, where, you both experience, sensation from slight movements.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
this
yeah.
country has no idea about, I think, what normal sex is supposed to be like.
Yeah.
Thereby comes the myth of the great European lover.
Latin lovers and all that. Yeah. But the thing is, an intact guy, you still have the option to have that friction if you want, and maybe do that jackhammering thing or whatever. When things pull back, then you can still do the friction part, right? So you have the option of doing both. Whereas those of us that are cut, we don't. Only option is friction. We don't have any rolling mechanism because we have, like mine moves about like that. So that's all the movement I have when I have a woody, a full-on erection.
See, I didn't even know the intact man had both options. That's the lack
have you ever
of
heard
knowledge.
of auto circumcision?
What's that?
Have you ever heard of auto circumcision?
No.
All that they do is they pull it back and they like somehow tie it back so it stays back.
Oh, I've seen that. I mean, and in pornography, I mean, they'll do that all the time, and that confuses the American viewer into thinking that they're watching a circumcised man being worked on.
Yeah.
And
you have to, if you look close enough, you can usually tell. You can see the frenulum more.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I can tell in a split second if the guy's intact or not. It's gotten to that point. But yeah, Americans are so ignorant; they don't realize that they're watching, an intact man being worked on.
Yeah.
They think they're all circumcised, but no.
You rarely ever see the intact guy flaccid. He's always got a hard on.
Right. And the female porn industry, I understand, they want their partners intact now because it's so much more comfortable for them. They've learned, that it's actually better now to have intact guys, and you just make them appear, retracted.
Yeah. And some of these sites you go out to and just search for the right thing. Search for uncircumcised or whatever, and you'll find where they've actually done interviews of porn stars talking about this topic. So if you really want it from the horse's mouth, that's one place to go. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting information out there. It's there's a very interesting story for anybody who likes Star Trek. So sad, but Patrick Stewart. The Patrick Stewart story?
Yes. I know him. Yeah, it's a great video on YouTube of him.
Yeah. So for any viewers who like Star Trek and Captain Picard, this man circumcised both of his sons because he thought he was circumcised. And it took him until the age of 50 or 60 to realize that he was intact himself.
Yeah. And he had a Jewish doctor that told him this. So, no, you're intact. You're not circumcised.
I was so disappointed when I heard that. I was like, oh my God,
Yeah.
Like Star Trek was one of those shows I could still enjoy watching.
Yeah. Someone told me, they like Star Trek better than Star Wars because it's more positive, more hopeful and all that stuff, and not as dark as Star Wars. But anyways, tangent.
It is. You think Star Trek would be one of those shows where, they've had episodes about things like that, androgynous, races, where they're going to force the androgyny on, somebody who was born with a sex. Yeah. But Gene Roddenberry's dead, so that's all, in the past.
Yeah. Anyways, the other thing that kind of goes along with the rolling mechanism is moisture, lubrication. I'm going to go to a sex toy shop at some point and hold a bunch of like KY jelly and all these other lubes and get a picture of myself, and then I do a TikTok video that says, "Hey guys, and women, if your partner is circumcised, chances are you need more of this."
Oh, absolutely, and I mean that's the great part of I think the book, The Joy of Sex as Nature Intended It.
Oh yeah.
I mean, yes, of course. If in America, the damage that women go through from having a circumcised partner, I mean, yep, you have a good library. But yeah, no, I mean, the damage from having a dry calloused head and from having, you know, a penis that's essentially designed as now a squeegee, where you're withdrawing with every long, exaggerated outstroke all of her moisture.
That rib right there.
Yep.
Dragging it out. Yep.
I mean, you're drying her out and you're abrading her, making her bleed, which isn't, you know, pathway for HIV.
You can tear them. Yeah.
Yeah. And intact man, when he retracts, everything is just kept in that, you know, preputial pocket.
Yeah. But
So
plus the men have, like, they're, you know, they have their own lubrication in there. It's lubricated, and you know, when when you retract it, you know, it's all lubricated in there.
It's
so
all, yeah.
the male is bringing lubrication too.
It's yeah, I mean, the difference in you know, sex is so dramatic that you know, Americans just have no idea. I mean, they really need a very proper education on the subject that would be, you know, taught in, like, well, you'd have to teach it in, like, you know, sex ed in high school.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, I think you know, I have 2 teenage boys, and I've been dealing with the school districts that they've been involved in on the sex ed topics. I've been trying to get to the people that create the materials that are trained on, but I haven't gotten that far yet. So still working on that one.
That would be great.
Yeah.
And I'd be so interested to see if they would accept it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the materials that are out there that schools use is like used, you know, universally. So if we can get that changed, even a little bit, you know, I think there's a lot of. Well, this was very obvious when I had the meeting where they were talking about what they teach, you know, children. They were like, oh, we try to avoid, you know, certain things like, you know, religion and stuff like that. It's like, well, guess what, guys? You're using the word circumcision. That is a euphemism from religion. You can't avoid religion. I gave them a whole bunch of feedback as they were doing their presentation, and I actually chatted with them later on. It's like, yeah, you make a lot of sense. It's like, you can't. There's certain things you just can't avoid, and yeah, parents might end up being pissed that, you know, their children are learning the facts and the realities of this, but
it's unavoidable.
It is what it is. So, you know, they do need to learn. They should learn. They should learn the truth.
You see them upset when they see, you know, protesters. You know, these protesters are standing out here. What am I going to tell my son about what I did to him? Mm-hmm. Well, you know, if you can't explain it, you shouldn't have done it to him.
Exactly.
So sorry, but you know, this has been done. You did it. Now you got to face the consequences of it, and the kids got to face the consequences of it. You know.
Yeah. So, anyways, you know, so another thing about the moisture loop. I don't know if you've seen how many of my videos on YouTube you've seen, but I have one video where I took I cut off a finger with a glove and stuck it on my finger, but here's the thing. So, like, if you just try to take your finger and stick it into your fist, and you don't have to like hold your fist really tight or anything like that, just you know, a loose fist, it's not easy to stick your finger in your fist, right? So I did this video without even trying this, but it's just like I just came up with the idea. It's like, I should try this, and I turned on the camera and as I was doing this, so you can see my real reaction as I did this. So I stuck a piece of double-sided tape on my finger, stuck the piece of rubber glove on my finger, right? Stuck a little bit of Vaseline on the end, just not much, and then I pulled up the glove so it would double up, much like, you know, an intact penis, right? And it went like this, bloop. It went in so freaking easy. I was like, I kind of figured it would go in kind of easy, but I didn't know it was going that easy, and it just got me.
I'll have to try that. You know,
it's like, so that's what it'd be like to have an intact penis. That's not right. That's just not fair. I should have my foreskin.
I know. Yeah, having to deal with that. Each of our individual, emotions and anger and resentments and all that. Yeah. People don't realize. I mean, that it follows you through life. You know what I mean? It doesn't go away. You can try therapy. You can do whatever you want, but it's always going to be there. You're just trying to find ways to deal with it. Yep.
Yeah, and there's there's several men that are, sharing their experiences as they are trying to get through this. You can go to norm.org, or here in LA they have an in-person meeting, National Organization of Restoring Men. I've been able to attend it, so you get to meet a lot of other men that have been struggling through this, learning all this, and then there's men like Carter Steinoff and Jordan Norell that share their views and everything online and publicly and all that. So
Yeah, we have to. I think part of our job as intactivists is we have to make the circumcised American public uncomfortable with the fact that they are circumcised.
yeah,
It's sad. I hate to say that there's like a generation of guys that will have to go through that. Oh, I've been screwed over.
yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's
Some of these guys I've watched as they've learned, more and more, and they've been going through the same process that I went through over the past 16 years, and I hate to see them going through it. It's really a struggle. It's really sad. That adds to my depression. I really hate to see men having to recognize the harm. And what gets me more though is that more are getting cut today. So what do we choose? We can't protect men from their feelings and protect the babies from getting cut at the same time.
right. Exactly. And the differences with the parents now, with somebody like my mother, she has the excuse, when I was born, she didn't have this education. There were no intactivists trying to educate her. I approached her, and thank God, I'm an atheist, but thank God she responded in an appropriate human manner. Because I think we all know when guys approach their parents and they don't, it's pretty much the end of the relationship. That happens. I mean, it's just typically that's the end of the relationship. That's been my experience.
Yeah.
But for the generation now whose parents that we've tried to educate and have had this education so available, I don't know, how they're going to end up, dealing with their children.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot more wrecked relationships in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a simple Google search, people.
And we keep a database. I mean, in activisms, we've been keeping a database of our conversations with different people, and so I mean, there will be a database out there one day for people to look up. Did these people ever speak with my
Did you talk to my dad? Yeah. That's true.
I think outside the high schools, you know what I mean, talking to our target audience has to be these, young guys, young girls before they've had children, at the age of 18, or before they've become, in a relationship where they become so loyal to the cut man, where they're, still going to go on dating. We have to get it to the point where they don't want to date cut guys,
Yeah.
I think we all know as intactivists. I mean, when I first started, one of my ideas to get more guys into the movement, because we have the lousiest sales pitch to draw guys into our movement. It's like, come here, admit that you've been, your penis is damaged.
Yeah.
So I decided to come up with a group called Intacti Chicks, where it would be come and join our group. There's all these hot girls out there who appreciate what you're doing, and you might meet some of them and get laid.
That's
so
great.
we need some type of we need some type of a pitch to draw. Yeah, we need motivation. We need something to draw guys here.
Yeah. That's a great idea. I like that.
Yeah, I think the page still looks it.
That's great. Okay, so we covered moisture and lube, and we've also been talking about the frenulum, and or I like to call it the frenular area because it's kind of like the frenulum underneath your tongue. It helps anchor things down, and on the penis, it's the part that kind of goes down and it stretches out and grabs a hold of the inner mucosa and pulls back up when your penis goes back
Yeah,
in.
no, I wouldn't even compare it with, the area under, my tongue. With me, I was left with a very small amount of frenulum, and that was always the critical area for pleasure and to be able to reach orgasm.
Yeah.
So like from my experience in life, if somebody were to ask me, I'd say, that this small area, that is essentially the penis. That's, the important area. That's where it will bring you to orgasm. That's where you stimulate. So it's different for guys. I've never noticed like the frenulum under the tongue. I guess it's, function in tethering is similar.
Yeah, but it's not sensitive like.
But you'll find that things like in pornography, there's like frenulum pornography edging. Where they just stimulate just that specific area because it seems to be one of the the main trigger essentially in sex.
You brought up Glenn Callender, and he talked about that on the American Circumcision documentary.
Yes,
just mess with the frenular area, frenulum, and you can get an ejaculation just from that.
And that's why when I educate Americans, I will focus primarily just on that area because that's what they're aware of. I've gone through cosmopolitan magazines for years when they will give advice on how to give oral sex, and they will occasionally mention the F spot, and so I'll take screenshots of it, and it's amazing how ignorant even Cosmo is, but occasionally they will mention it, and I have it in some of my videos, screenshots of it from Cosmo. They'll call it the F spot, the booty bullseye. If you concentrate on this area, if you want your guy to go crazy. So it's Americans understand that spot, they're aware of it. And so if you could show them, like I do, I have an image of a doctor amputating a baby's frenulum. It's a horrible image.
Yeah.
Or you show comparisons. That's one way to get that, understanding in their minds of the damage that circumcision causes. So that's one of the main techniques that I use to educate. I'll use that and the horrible surgical video.
As you know, there's no regulation in how circumcision is done. There's many ways of it being done, but like some will just like clip the frenulum, kind of like dealing with a tongue tie. My oldest had a tongue tie. They clip it so the mucosa and everything relaxes and stays down on the shaft instead of being pulled back up over the head, because they don't, once they've disconnected it from the head, they don't want it to reconnect to the head, because then you end up with skin ridges and stuff like that. But there's also cases where I've heard where men were like free-handed cut, and all that frenulum area right underneath their glands was actually carved out, so there's like no sensation there at all. And as they get older, they can't get they can't get there, period, at all.
You can't get there, right? And that's the thing, if you'll keep screenshots of it, and so you could see how each one is different, and you could show people, like, if you show a man who owns one and values it, say, well, look at this gentleman, he was circumcised by somebody else, just like your son will be, and your kid might be left with nothing. Did you even know you should say to him, don't touch that spot? You see how little you already know, sir? Let me keep educating you.
Yeah.
And the fact that the doctors don't know this, I recall seeing, a video of a Filipino who was, trying to educate the other doctors to preserve that spot. And I said, oh, good. At least, he was a gentleman. I guess he was left with the small, area of his. And so he knew enough to teach the other doctors. So, yeah.
Yeah, the way I understand the Filipinos do, they don't actually remove any tissue. They do a slice and then they pull it down and then sew them back together, or whatever, so it stays off the glands, but they still have all that tissue. So I would like to see some, better documentation of all that and all, but that's just what I've heard so far. Haven't seen any kind
Yeah,
of books or anything on it.
from what I've heard many times, doctors will deny that there's sensation in the frenulum. They'll sometimes say, "Oh no, it's underneath. The nerves are underneath there,"
Mm-hmm.
but then you can nail them by saying, "Well, why is it that with a paraplegic men, the treatment to get them to ejaculate is to stimulate the frenulum?" You know, that's one of the techniques. You could use a vibrator on the frenulum, and then you've caught them in their own, literature has now,
Yeah. Pretty much the same reason why females, like vibrators. Same area.
Exactly.
It's just
It's
as
the
much
same.
smaller. Yeah.
Yes, it's the same area, just smaller, and that's it.
Yeah. Oh, anyways. Okay, so then there's a ridged band, right? And though I've heard this explained to me from Intact Men, Michael Winnell from Foreskin Revolution, he did a video where he talked about things, and one of the things he talks about is how this is all. You've got the dartos fascia that makes this kind of tight over the glands, right, as it goes forward. And the whole idea is that, especially in babies, is it closes up and acts like one-way sphincter, so things can go out, but nothing can get in. But as an adult, when an erection occurs, then that is sliding down over the glands, and the glands, the way that's shaped, is making it spread apart, and that's the the ridge band spreading out, and there's actual nerves that like that, right? So it feels good just doing that, going through that process alone.
It would be wonderful if there was just an image of just the nerve system of the penis and how it lights up during the movement, so people could understand that that compared to a circumcised penis. And that would be a wonderful way for people to, a lot of people are visual learners.
Yeah.
And if they see that, it would take away all the other bull crap that they've learned. And they would say, "Oh yeah, that's horrible. I don't want that to happen to my son."
Yeah. All that we can do is right now that I know of is expect Intact Men to explain what goes on for them down there, and think about it in at that level of detail like Michael has done. Thank you, Michael. But yeah, I that would be interesting if there would be some tool or way to do it with a machine or something that like uses a camera and it sees how things are lighting up or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, like an EMG or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure you'll be hard to find a guy. Like, we want to stick some needles in you, and but
Oh yeah, that's gonna give me a turn on, sure.
Or
I'm gonna get a hard on with needles.
Even something like doing a CAT scan, or not a CAT scan, but like
MRI.
An MRI, like an active MRI, and take a look at the difference in the orgasmic experience between a cut man and an intact man. I think there's a lot of different scientific ways that we could prove that there is a difference. The way the pro circumcision people do it is, they will come up with the most deceitful, methods possible to give you no information and just come up with the result they want. That they'll say, circumcision does not affect sensitivity of the penis, but they don't consider foreskin the penis. You know what I mean? They don't test any part of that because it wouldn't be fair, because the other guys don't have that. So we're just going to test the remaining areas.
That's what Marilyn Milo said.
They should say the remaining areas. Circumcision does not affect the sensitivity in the remaining areas of the shaft. You know what I mean? So, they're so deceitful, and they trick new parents with this bull crap who just want to do, the 5-minute, I did the medical Google search.
Yeah, I found all these medical benefits of reducing HIV and STIs and penile cancer. That's one. There's one. But yeah. All right. So those are all the physical parts that are ablated or amputated. So then I want to talk a little bit about the physical effects of that, part that's missing. One of the first things that I cover is scrotal webbing, or hairy shaft, because this is the bottom part of the penis, right? And then you got your scrotum sitting down here, right? So when you get an erection, that scrotum is being drawn up because you don't have the skin to unroll down onto your penis. You have to get skin from somewhere else, and that skin isn't stretching out that much. I actually like the term turtleneck. It really does a good job of explaining how the turtleneck works. You watch a turtle stick its head out and stick its head back in, and you see that skin, roll up and roll down. Can you imagine cutting off the skin off of a poor turtle's neck? It's just absolutely horrible.
I don't know if you have the ability, post-production to add images. I have an image of a penis. I mean, talk about hairy shaft. There's hair all the way up to the top of the glands. Yeah. I mean, it's
yep.
as,
Yep. I just keep referring people to websites because I don't want YouTube to kick off my videos.
Kick you off. Yeah.
They took one of my videos just recently and knocked it down to 18 plus or only or whatever. And anyways. Yeah.
But that's so common, and and talk about unattractive, and troublesome, and I mean.
Yeah, you can find even babies. You can see where the scrotum is like right up underneath the glands. It's like, that poor kid he's going to live his entire life without any shaft skin. The scrotum does not feel anything like the rest of the penis. I don't want scrotum up there on my shaft.
Right.
And when that scrotum gets hairy, that's not good. I don't think any woman wants that either, especially if a guy's been trimming down there. It's like, that's scary, thinking about hairy stuff going inside the vagina.
They don't realize the sheer volume of tissue removed during a circumcision. I mean, it's a dramatically large amount when you actually see it, especially even with a baby. I mean, you'll look and you'll see, it's like, oh my God, that's as much tissue as that covers an entire finger, or it looks like an ear, or,
Because it's a double fold.
Yes, it's a large amount of penis. And so, I think, if the issue is you show, images to an American, and what we've done is, since a young age, we have activated the disgust mechanism in their brain to activate every time they hear the word foreskin or to see a penis, and that's a very ancient part of our brain that prevented us from eating rotten meat or drinking dirty water. And so by having that activated, anytime, a person hears that word foreskin or sees an intact man, it really creates a hurdle that we have to get them, over. And it takes, it actually takes like a little bit of time of sitting down and, every time, with all of my girlfriends in the past, they've all had children, and I've had to educate all of them about this. And because I would never be with the woman who's not completely educated on the subject.
Yeah.
And and they're all horrified, and they all can't believe that, after education that they didn't realize it, and that they didn't, not that they didn't trust their gut, sorry if this is a triggering thing for you. But yeah, it seems so obvious afterwards, after education, for people, Yeah,
it's true. Yeah, absolutely. The other thing about the Okay, so the next thing after the scrotal webbing, one thing that happens to some men like myself, I actually interviewed another guy that said that has had the same problem, is because the scrotum is being drawn up onto the penis, is getting stretched sometimes, and what's inside of the scrotum is your testes, right? And no man likes to get kicked in the testes. You're nuts. I've even seen like on some porn where the testes are up and the scrotum has been pulled up and the testes are on the sides of his shaft. For me, and from what I understand with some other men, sometimes not just does that like squeeze the testes where it makes kind of uncomfortable, like almost like getting kicked in, it's like you're squeezing the testes a little bit. Sometimes a testes will pop inside the inguinal canal up inside the body, and that's really uncomfortable. And I'm 51 now, so things have stretched out a little bit down there, so that doesn't happen to me anymore. But when I was, in my teens and 20s, that would happen, and I had to stop having sex or stop, masturbating until I could like relax that back out there. And I'd also have to like kind of mind over matter control my erection so it wouldn't get too big, so it wouldn't pull so much of my scrotum, and still try to orgasm at the same time. So that's quite a hurdle.
Yeah, that's very interesting because I never had tight erection or anything like that. But when I was 16, I noticed like I was having twisting, and I was diagnosed as having something called like a bell clapper. So they did a fixture where they would put a few stitches so that your testes don't twist. And now I wonder, is that the cause of it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Could that be the cause? I mean, I wonder. If you're putting tension, making things tight, making it not a problem. Yeah, that's very interesting.
The doctors might not even, or they might not notice it, or they might not even say anything about it. They might hide it from you if that was the case. There's a book by Patricia Robinette. This Patricia is a FGM, or female circumcision survivor, as you would put it, in the U.S. She was cut in the United States, and she was cut so young that she didn't remember it. But when she got older, she'd go to urologist and stuff like that, and the urologist thought that she still had a clitoris, but it was like super, super tiny. She went and analyzed it herself, like really close. She got the tools and everything, and she realized she was definitely cut. And then she went and looked and found out, yeah, she was circumcised as a little girl because she was touching herself.
Yep.
So yeah, people, this used to be a thing in the United States of America.
Yeah, and it's something that with intersex, it's still occurring. If you look back, when you do research about the origins of male circumcision, you will find they did the same kinds of sick experiments on women. We did experiments on 100 girls and found 80% had profuse amounts of smegma under the clitoral hood. And I mean, so you think, what kind of a pervert is there with these young girls, messing around with them, diagnosing them with having adhesions, the same kind of crap they did while they were still actively circumcising. They were doing the same kind of studies, trying to study what kind of bacteria is underneath there. Oh, we found spirochetes under this amount, So the history of that is equally sick. It's, could write a book about that. And and I mean, if we were to go on with a new surgery, people would. What's that called?
From Hita Valoria and Intersex Life. Hita is an intact intersex person.
Yeah. If we were to invent a new surgery, we would have to pass peer review, and people would have to agree this is a great idea. Yes,
that's why they went to Africa.
But it didn't start. No peer review began this process. This is where we've inherited this disgusting snowball full of crap. You know what I mean? But it did not begin through any scientific, basis. And I think we need to go all the way back and say, let's find the way this, began. And, what scientific, basis do you have to even, say that a young boy, doesn't deserve to have this certain part of his body?
Yeah,
Why can you
absolutely.
pick one part and not the other? Why not the
Yeah.
earlobe? Give
Yeah.
me,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
would say that.
If we were in a different universe where genital cutting wasn't ever really made into a ritual, and we started today, someone came up and said, "Hey, we can cut this off and reduce chances of these things." They would be hung. The burden of proof would be on them, not on us advocates that are trying to advocate for an intact, body.
Exactly. We need to go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Or say, little girls. What if a girl is going to have a 50% chance of having breast cancer by the time she's 25?
Yeah.
You can make a small incision, a small burn, and, so she won't develop breasts. You could do it. It would be a quick thing while she's an infant.
Yeah.
And then, why is that not acceptable? Why can't a parent choose to do that and, save her daughter's life, with this? I mean, the benefits of that would be massive.
Yeah. Like, so, we got a 60% reduction of HIV, right? Supposedly, according to these studies that are really flawed.
Yeah, relative reduction.
We have, we can do like 100% reduction in breast cancer, and the chances of breast cancer are way higher. I mean, 1 in 8 chance of breast cancer. What's the chance of getting HIV? What, 2 in 100, something like that?
Yeah. And you find women with the mutation, families where the baby girl has a mutation, so we still wouldn't allow that. You know what I mean? Because we say, well, no, breasts have a purpose. They have, we like the way they look.
Yeah.
A woman has a right to them, even though they're not required. I mean, we have bottle feeding now, their evolutionary purpose, we could say, is gone, just like, the force, So, I mean, if you want to play, these stupid, logical games, we'll win every single time.
Absolutely.
And that's why we'll never find a doctor who will actually come and debate us on a program like this or on camera. I don't know if you've ever seen one. I've tried to find one who will come online and debate these issues.
Yeah, the show called The Doctors?
Yes.
And there's also, I guess it's the same place as Dr. Phil. I've down in Hollywood area, I've seen the big sign for both of them side by side. It's like, I'd love to get onto that show with you.
There was one doctor on that show who, the one bald doctor says, well, that's, in this case, in female genital mutilation, they're removing erectile tissue. And the younger guy says, well, with male circumcision, they're removing a lot of neurological tissue. And then he's like, well, and then they ended the section right there, right at the point where they should have continued it. And right, they never finished it. And that's where they need to continue that debate, because that's the point. I mean,
Yeah. We're having the oppression Olympics on here. Women are harmed far more than men. Okay, so you just admitted that men are harmed. Great.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Okay, let's end both. Put an end to it all.
I mean, you could really make like a little tree of questions where you could teach anybody how to debate and win the circumcision debate. That's how easy it is.
Yeah. All right, so the next section is about the pelvic floor and how it's affected. So the pelvic floor being the base of the stomach, where the base of the stomach meets the top part of the penis, and this is something that I deal with when the skin is too tight because there's been too much removed here, and then you get an erection. What happens is that the skin gets tight, so you end up getting arching. And that's bending the corpus cavernosum, bending the penis, and most anyone that has a penis knows that you don't grab a hold of the right penis and try to bend it. It hurts. It's uncomfortable, right? So that's one of those things that's going on is bending too much, and I've actually had cases, I'm pretty sure, where like I would get so erect that not only would this happen, but like the base of my penis, the corpus cavernosum that's inside my body, and anyone can look this up. You can see the corpus cavernosum goes all the way back to your anus. It's like pushing out like this. So it's not only that I'm getting a bend there, but I'm like getting an S-shaped bend, to my penis, and it's.
Yeah, it doesn't
You know what
it doesn't sound
BDS?
comfortable, you know.
No, it's not. It's not comfortable. You know what BDSM is, right? It's like you're combining,
Yeah.
pain with pleasure.
Right.
Like, yeah, I'm not a fan of BDSM, but I get stuck with it anyways.
Well, and there's a lot of parents, I'll help out on pages, where there'll be, parents who have children who are having like hypospadias issues. And I mean, and that's a common thing,
Yeah.
and parents will be worried, is this going to affect him as he gets older?
Yeah. So for the viewers, hypospadias is where the meatus, instead of being up here at the end, it ends up somewhere down the line. Right. And when you look at the way that genitalia is formed, it's understandable how that could happen.
Yeah. Yep. You just don't suture together. The rapha doesn't suture together at the correct
when you
place.
look at female genitalia, their glands is up here, and their meatus is down below the glands.
Yeah.
And genitalia, as it gets developed, going into male, that for some reason that meatus doesn't, get all the way up there to the top of the glands for the male.
Yeah, another great thing is just to show a split, picture of a male and a female at that age where they look precisely the same, and say, so at one point it's okay now to, cut the genitals of this one, but not this one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a meme
Think
out
of your
there.
logic right here. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
I try to logic people to death, and sometimes it works, I think most of the saves that, I've had in the past, and I give a shout out to my friend Ashley Kydell, who had the page Intactile Activist Mama.
Oh, yeah.
And I helped her with that. I did the intactivism part of it, but she became famous from having the picture of herself breastfeeding. And she was, on newspapers around the world, and she used her fame and started this Facebook page that was about breastfeeding and circumcision. And it became huge. And, we would have posts with, horrible, circumcision videos that would be seen by like 500,000 views. So you can imagine how many parents, were typing things, oh my God, how horrible, never going to do this. And she actually allowed the circumcision part of it to damage, the rest of her page, the breastfeeding part of it. But she had a young infant, and her sick husband one day, to spite her, brought that baby back home circumcised, even though he had been, it was one of the sickest things. And I just wanted to put that out there, that Ashley is an amazing person, and that her husband's a piece of crap.
Yeah, man, that's horrific. Absolutely. Don't let me around that guy.
Yeah. It was a similar situation to Heather. And I like to mention too, that Heather Hieronymus's husband, Dennis, I call him Dennis the Coward of America West Flight 554, because he was on an airliner that was in midair, and it declared an emergency. And he wanted to sit as close as possible to the emergency exit. And so he, was scared, I guess. So he got up, and this flight attendant said, "Please, sir, please sit down." He didn't follow her instructions several times. He got up, and he went over and sat his butt down in the safest seat of the airliner. And when it landed, he was arrested. So I just like to mention that's what happened with Dennis, Heather Hieronymus's ex.
Yeah. They some groups like the Zosa tribe says, they act like this is a ritual, a rite to become a man. Sometimes I think that it makes us less of a man.
Yeah. Oh, obviously. How this ever became a becoming more of a man? It's ghastly.
So backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and the
take away
fact
some
that
of manhood and become more a man.
it started. I mean, not to bash any kind of religion, but I mean, it started because a man was hearing voices in his head, saying "kill your child," and instead he decided to cut apart his penis, and then decided to do that to other people. Not sure if he was, on any kind of hallucinogen, but I know that if you were to go to the hospital today and be saying the same kind of things, you'd be in a padded room. We wouldn't be starting a religion around you and be mutilating our children. So it's, it's just kind of, baffling how, what we have to fight, how it began.
Exactly. All right, so the next item that I had on the list was milah stenosis, but I think we pretty well covered that one fairly well.
You know what? I have to run.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right.
Nice talking with you.
We want to follow up in a future one?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, man. Well, thanks for doing this. See you soon.
Pleasure.